Now let's start with blood. Well, blood is actually a fluid connective tissue, right? It's a fluid connective tissue, or you can say a mobile connective tissue, because it's constantly moving, which is composed of a fluid, that is what? The plasma. The fluid is the plasma part, and the cells, which are the blood corpuscles, right? So blood is a mobile connective tissue composed of the fluid, that is the plasma, and the cells, that is the blood corpuscles. The study of blood is known as what? It is known as hematology. The study of blood is known as hematology, and blood forms 30 to 35% of your ECF, that is extracellular fluid, right? And the volume of blood in adults is approximately 5.5 liters, and it has slightly alkaline pH, that is a pH of 7.4, a slightly alkaline pH. Then if we talk about the composition of the blood, as I told you, it is composed of the fluid part that we call as a plasma, and the cells that we call as what? The blood corpuscles, or you can call as formed elements. So in a fluid, that is a plasma, these cells are there. And this blood actually forms a mobile connective tissue which is constantly moving throughout your body. The arteries, they carry the blood from the heart to all the body parts, and veins bring the blood from all the body parts to your heart. You must have read about this in your previous classes. So this blood is what? It is a mobile connective tissue. Coming back to the composition, we have the fluid, that is a plasma, and the cells, that is a blood corpuscles. If you talk about the plasma, then plasma forms 55% of the blood. If we talk about the formed elements or the blood corpuscles, they form 45% of the blood, the remaining 45% of the blood. Now, in terms of plasma, since plasma is a fluid, it is a pale yellow but transparent fluid. What are the components that are there in the plasma? There are many components. First of all, it is 90 to 92% water. Since it's a transparent fluid, means it has 90 to 92% water. It has minerals also, that is sodium, calcium, magnesium. Then there are ions, namely bicarbonate ions, chlorine ions. The nutrients are also there: glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, lipids. Then we have proteins. Proteins form 7 to 8% of the plasma, and the main important major proteins in the blood plasma are the albumins, globulin, fibrinogen and prothrombin, right? You will also come to know about what are their functions, how do they help in blood clotting. Then we have the defense compounds. We have immunoglobulins. These immunoglobulins, they actually form what? They form antibodies, right? So they are the defense compounds, because they are going to fight the infectious bacteria, viruses, and help us to protect ourselves, right? Then we have excretory substances also. This blood contains urea, uric acid, ammonium salts, which are the toxic substances. These substances need to be actually excreted out, removed from our bodies. Then there are dissolved gases in the blood also: oxygen, carbon dioxide and ammonia. When the blood is actually oxygenated, it is red in color, right? Means if we talk about oxygenated blood, that oxygenated blood is what? It is rich in oxygen, it is red in color. When we talk about deoxygenated blood, means it is deficient in oxygen, right? So oxygenated blood means the blood that is rich in oxygen, and deoxygenated means the blood that is deficient in oxygen. So it is more deeper red in color, dark red in color. So we have bright red colored oxygenated blood, and normally dark red color, that is deoxygenated blood, right? So we have now the dissolved gases. I told you oxygen, carbon dioxide and ammonia. We have anticoagulants also, that is heparin. Now what is heparin, which is an anticoagulant, is going to do? It is actually what? It is actually a polysaccharide. It is going to prevent coagulation of the blood when the blood is flowing in the arteries and the veins. So it is very important. This heparin, which is an anticoagulant, has a very important role to play, and this role is of vital importance for all of us. So this plasma, the fluid, also has the anticoagulant. Remember the name, very important name, that is heparin, Heparin. Then we have hormones, vitamins and enzymes that are there in the plasma. Plus we also have factors which are there for clotting of blood. We have the factors which are there for clotting of blood. When the factors for clotting of blood are not there, then we call that fluid as serum. When the clotting factors are absent, we call that fluid as what? The serum, right? Just remember this. Then moving on to the functions of the plasma. Well, first function of plasma is the prevention of blood loss. Now, how does this happens? Means, for example, you have a cut on your body. Now, blood is going to flow and flow and flow, right? It is not going to stop if there are no clotting factors in your blood. So, plasma has those clotting factors that we discussed, due to which plasma has a very important function, that is prevention of blood loss. So, what are those actually proteins that are going to prevent blood loss? They are fibrinogen and prothrombin. We have fibrinogen and prothrombin. They are going to prevent blood loss. How they are going to prevent blood loss? They are going to prevent blood loss by the clotting of blood. So, this naturally happens in your bodies. When there is a cut, the blood flows, but after some time that blood flow actually stops. Why? Because at this stage there is blood clotting, and this blood clotting is due to these clotting factors that are there in the plasma, right? And this also, plasma has an important function of the retention of fluid also. When we talk about the retention of fluid, then we have certain other important proteins that help, that is albumin and globulin. We have albumin and globulin that retain the watery part in the plasma, which make this plasma sort of a fluid, right? So, albumin and globulin, they retain water in the plasma. Then we talk about body immunity. We have already discussed the defense compounds, that is the immunoglobulins. So, these immunoglobulins, they are actually going to form antibodies which are going to fight infections in our body, which are going to actually kill the bacteria, the viruses that can cause infections. With this, we also have, we can say, lysozyme, which is bactericidal, right? So, they are going to kill the bacteria that enter in our bodies. Then plasma also maintains the pH of the body. There are the plasma proteins which act as buffers, means they are going to neutralize acids and bases. So, plasma proteins, they help in the maintenance of pH. Then the plasma also performs a function of transport of nutrients, transport of gases, right? Then distribution of heat. The plasma proteins, again, they have a role to play in the distribution of heat in the body. Then we have certain enzymes also that are there in the plasma. Plus, plasma also maintains homeostasis. Homeostasis means maintaining the internal environment. So, plasma also has an important function of maintaining this homeostasis. So, I hope that the composition of plasma and the functions of the plasma, that are very clear to you. So, now we have done the fluid part of the blood, that is the plasma. The next part we have the blood corpuscles. What are actually blood corpuscles or the formed elements? They are the shaped structures. Means when we are talking about cells, they are the shaped structures visible under the microscope as cell, or you can say cell-like structures. So, they form the formed elements which are actually there in the fluid, which we called as plasma, which we have discussed, right? Then they form the 45% of the blood, 55% is the plasma, 45% is the blood corpuscles. And then there are of three types. We have erythrocytes, which we also call as RBCs, that is red blood corpuscles. Then we have leukocytes, which we call as WBCs, that is white blood corpuscles. And then we have thrombocytes, which we call as blood platelets. So, this is the brief idea about the blood corpuscles. We are going to discuss in detail, don't worry. But the composition of blood, just remember, it is composed of the fluid part, 55% plasma, and the cell-like structures, that is the blood corpuscles, which make up the 45% of the blood. Now we are going to discuss the blood corpuscles, that is erythrocytes, leukocytes and thrombocytes.